What's up guys, in this video I'm going to be making a 40-gallon vertical paludarium for my new Vietnamese Mossy frogs. I found these guys on Craigslist and they've made awesome pets so far. They're very fun to watch and have great personalities. I highly recommend these frogs if you have experience keeping amphibians. Alright, let's get started. To start, I'm using a 40-gallon breeder that I converted into a custom front opening enclosure. I made this a while ago, but all I did was silicone a piece of glass to the bottom section, a mesh ventilation piece to the top section, and the door is a piece of polycarbonate attached with hinges and custom latches. The first thing I'm going to make is the background. To do that, I'm using a sheet of XPS foam. You can find it at most home improvement stores, and it's a great, cheap, easy way to make an awesome looking DIY background. I started off by marking the correct measurements on the foam. Then I went on to cut the foam with a razor blade. Next, I snapped the foam along the straight edge of the table. Then I went on to test fit everything in the tank. Everything fit well and looked good, so it was time to move on to the next step, drawing the design. I used a Sharpie to draw on some random rocky looking patterns. In the future, I think I'd do something a little more detailed, but since this is my first one, I just wanted to do something simple. There's no pattern or technique to the way I'm drawing these rocks. I'm just putting random shapes in wherever I feel like they fit. After all, this is supposed to be a natural looking background. Once I had the pattern drawn on, I proceeded to cut the outline with a small kitchen knife. This doesn't need to go all the way through, just about halfway. Once I had it cut, I started to remove the foam in between the outlines. This was pretty easy. All I did was stick the knife in between the foam and pop it out. Then I gave the piece more shape by rounding off the sharp edges. Once I had that done, then it was time to give it some texture. To do this, I used my kitchen knife and scraped it along the surface of the foam. This took quite a while, but eventually I got it done. By scraping the knife along the surface, I'm creating a nice, sharp, rocky texture. Everything looks pretty fuzzy right now, so I'll tighten it up with a heat gun. This hardens the foam and really helps to bring out all the details. Before I continue with the background, I need to address some of the plumbing. This tank is going to feature a drip wall, so I need to account for that before adding the background. First, I attached a PVC elbow to 2 pieces of pipe. Then I measured the length and cut it to size to make sure that it would fit inside the tank. Once I had the pipe cut, I set it on the background and marked for the cuts. Then I used a ruler and cut along the markings. Then I snapped off the piece. I then repeated the process for the side. Everything looked good, so it was time to test it in the tank. The way the drip wall is going to work is there's going to be a water reservoir in the bottom and a pump that's going to be pulling it up the side of the tank all the way to the top and out of the pipe. Everything fit perfectly, so it was time to move on to painting the background. To do that, I'm going to be using white tintable Drylock and concrete pigments. I started by pouring some Drylock into a bucket, then adding some concrete pigments. I mixed everything up and then it was ready to be painted. I wanted to do something similar to limestone because mossy frogs live in limestone caves. However, I didn't think that the full limestone look would look good for the aesthetic I'm trying to go for, so I decided to go with something a little more gray. I started by just painting a layer full of dark gray, making sure to get every crack. Then I used a dry brush technique with a light gray to add highlights. thick layer over the back just to further protect the foam from water. Now that the background's finished, I can finish the drip wall. I started by drilling some holes in the pipe for the water to drip out of. Some of the other materials I'll be using include airline tubing and a cheap pump I found on Amazon. There's not too much left I have to do in terms of the drip wall, except test it. I started by filling the bottom of the tank with water, then inserting the pump onto the airline tubing. Then I put the pump in the tank. Then I attached the rest of the tubing and plugged it in. Once the drip wall was tested and everything looked good, I could start attaching the background. I'm just using some 100% silicone, applying it all over the glass, and then pressing the background into place. The background from bowing, I use pieces of wood and foam to hold the background in place. When carving the background, I made sure there was a small gap towards the front. This is so that the cord to the pump could run all the way up the side of the tank and out the top. I drilled a hole in the ventilation piece for the cord, then attached it to the tank. Once the silicone had cured after 24 hours, I removed all the wood and foam. Then I used more silicone to hide all the cracks. I ran silicone along the side, making sure to cover every piece of the pipe. Then I used my finger to smooth it out. And then more dry lock to create a more cohesive look. Now the background is finished, and I have to say, this looks pretty awesome. I proceeded to move the tank back onto the stand where I could start scaping it. First things first, I gotta clean off the plants. I'm just using a variety of epiphytic plants that I found at Home Depot. To wash off the plants, I first removed their pots, then removed the dirt, then sprayed them down with a hose. For the substrate, I'm using some Aqua Natural Flamingo gravel. I poured it into a bucket, then rinsed it off to remove dust. Once it was all washed out, I could pour it into the tank. I'm not sure this gravel was the perfect choice, but it'll be covered later anyway, so it won't matter. I sloped it up towards the back to create more depth. Then it was time to start the hardscape. I started by placing some river stones that I had from a leftover project. Once I got a scape that I was happy with, I could start to add the wood. I'm just using some branches that I found at a local aquarium store. The look I'm trying to go for here is roots breaching into a cave. This wood is the perfect choice since it does look like tree roots. I'm very happy with the finalized scape. It all looks exactly how I wanted it to. After taking some pictures of the scape to make sure I could rebuild it later, I rinsed off the wood to remove debris. Then I put the wood back into the tank and I could start adding the plants. Like I said earlier, all these plants are epiphytic, meaning they don't need soil to grow. As long as they have access to water, they'll do just fine, and that's where the drip wall comes in. Any of the plants that won't have access to the drip wall, I'll use sphagnum moss to keep them moist. I'll also use stainless steel staples to detach some plants to the background. So, funny story, I finished scaping the tank and I wasn't quite happy with it. I felt like it needed a bunch more plants as well as a land area, so I added all that. Anyway, here's the finished product. And there it is, the Vietnamese mossy frog dripwall. I'm really happy with the way this one turned out, and I'm really glad I decided to add more plants. It looks exactly how I wanted it to look. Anyway, that's all for today. Thanks for watching.